Good morning, folks. It's great to see you. The Church in Ocean Park Choir would like to sing a song. Hello. 3, 4. One more time, we have come here to sing together. One more time, we have come here to sing together. One more time, we have come here to sing together. One more time, we have come here to sing together. One more time. Walk a mile in my shoes, walk a mile in my shoes, before you throw the stone of judgment. Walk a mile in my shoes, walk a mile in my shoes, walk a mile in my shoes, before you throw the stone of judgment. Walk a mile in my shoes, walk a mile in my shoes, walk a mile in my shoes, before you throw the stone of judgment. Walk a mile in my shoes. Be kind. Everyone carries a heavy load. Be kind. Everyone carries a heavy load. Be kind. Everyone carries a heavy load. Good morning and welcome. Thank you.
Well, you know the one about walking a mile in someone else's shoes. By the time they realize they've lost their shoes, you've gained a mile on them. My name is Andre. I'm a member of the Church in Ocean Park. I'm here to welcome you to this unique multi-faith community that is dedicated to social justice. You may be wondering if you're welcome here. I'm going to do my own version of this, and I hope it works. Welcome to those who have bad knees, good knees, or no knees at all. Welcome to those who don't like to tick boxes on forms and don't put themselves in a box and don't put anyone else in a box. Welcome to those who prefer singing to dancing. Welcome to those who prefer real talk, deep talk, as opposed to cocktail talk. Welcome to those who prefer authentic relationship as opposed to something else. Welcome to those who believe something, and welcome to those who believe nothing. Welcome to those who cling to the Word, and welcome to those who cling to the Spirit. Welcome to those who think like you and me, and welcome to those who don't. We all want a home, and we have found a home in this place. And we all belong, no matter what our peculiarities and quirks. None of us cannot belong. So in this beloved community, we are celebrating each other's presence as a gift and as a privilege. So I'm thankful to be here, to be in the role of welcoming you to your home.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. We are happy to be here today and to join together in this act of worship, act of being together, and enabling us all to exhibit our own style and to recognize the worth and significance of each one of us, and indeed those who are on Zoom as well. So we recognize, of course, on Zoom, our minister here for the church in Ocean Park, Reverend Janet McKeithen. She's on Zoom. And of course, her mother is on Zoom as well. I had a nice conversation with the mother this week. I think it was Friday or Thursday. So Jennifer is here as well. Virginia is here as well.
Hello, Virginia.
Yes. So I welcome you on behalf of our minister, and to remind us that it is a multi-faith, multicultural community, multi-ethnic community, and no one person speaks entirely for the community, but we are able to listen and to hear and to actively respond and respect and to encourage one another. So we are a lively bunch, we are a lively group, and we recognize the worth and significance of what each person has to offer and to present. And so that is what that multiplicity, that togetherness keeps us alive and keeps us functioning well. Today we want to as well recognize that we are sitting on strange land. We are people of the church in Ocean Park, and we recognize that our building here in Santa Monica sits on stolen land. We, the settlers of this land, honor the Quiche, the Tongva, and Chumash peoples. We acknowledge the harms of genocide, enslavement, forced assimilation, gender violence, the destruction of sacred sites, the burial of historic truths, and indigenous suffering at the hands of U.S. settler colonialism. Today here we acknowledge that our communities and country were built on the backs of people stolen from Africa, placed into bondage, and forced into labor. We acknowledge that we benefit from that labor that has never been repaid or acknowledged. And so let us now commit ourselves to healing by helping to create a more just and equitable world through the struggle of changing how we do things that we see as normal and that support the systems that oppress people. We acknowledge the harm by pledging ourselves to be part of this culture of repair. Now we are going to join together with the Thich Nhat Hanh. I have arrived, I am home, in the here and in the now, 3 times. I have arrived, I am home, in the here and in the now. I have arrived, I am home, in the here and
Gail Price to give us quotations about education. We're having teachers speak today. Go ahead, Gail.
Okay, here they are. Can you hear me?
No. Not yet. Nate's on it.
Hello? Hello, there we go. Better than 1,000 days of diligent study is one day with a great teacher. Japanese proverb. Teaching kids to count is fine, but teaching them what counts is best. Kids don't remember what you try to teach them, they remember what you are. So true. I am not a teacher, but an awakener. In learning, you will teach, and in teaching, you will learn. That is for sure true. That's Phil Collins. Those who know do. Those that understand teach. I like Aristotle. The art of teaching is the art of assisting discovery. Mark Van Doren. Teaching is a very noble profession that shapes the character, caliber, and future of an individual. If the people remember me as a good teacher, that will be the biggest honor for me. A good teacher explains, a great teacher inspires. A teacher is one who makes himself progressively unnecessary. Here's some humorous ones. This is my favorite. Good teachers are the ones who can challenge young minds without losing their own. Am I right, Jean? Yeah. Being a teacher is a lot like being a rock star. It can't be. Being a new teacher is like trying to fly an airplane while building it. Rick Smith. Thank you. No. Jean, could you?
My name is Louise, and I love to do music here, and hopefully you can sing along. I'm not sure if you know this, but if you remember, this song was popularized by Three Dog Night. It's called Black and White, and it's written by Dave Arkin and Earl Robinson. Dave Arkin was Alan Arkin's father, for those who like to know such things. And it's a celebration of the they wrote it as a celebration of the Supreme Court ruling, Brown versus Board of Education, when they ruled that segregation of schools, racial segregation, is absolutely unconstitutional and damaging. And so I don't know when that ruling came down. 1954, thank you. But this song celebrated that ruling. The ink is black, the page is white. Together we learn to read and write. A child is black, a child is white. The whole world looks upon the sight, a beautiful sight. Oh no. Give me a second. Now a child can understand that this is the law of all the land, all the land. The world is black, the world is white. It turns by day and then by night. A child is black, a child is white. Together they grow to see the light, to see the light. And now at last we plainly see we'll have a dance of liberty. Liberty. The world is black, the world is white. The whole world looks upon the sight, a beautiful sight. The world is black, the world is white, turns by day and then by night. A child is black, a child is white, together they grow to see the light, to see the light. And now a child can understand, this is the law. Sing it for me.
Okay, so it's my great pleasure to introduce our speakers for today. Teaching, Teachers Sunday. Permit me a little remembrance. As I look back over the many, many years, I had just graduated from high school and I was home not doing anything and was feeling sorry for myself. And then one day, two opportunities came my way that same one day. One was to accept a teaching position, and the other one was to accept a position in the Ministry of Health at a mental hospital. And I don't think anybody besides me would have chosen the mental hospital. But that's what I did. I chose Department of Health to go into mental hospital. Somebody asked me, so why, Mr. Hepburn, did you choose to go there? Because you realized it was a unique response. And I said, well, I don't think I have the patience for teaching. Well, it takes much more than patience today. Much more than patience. It takes courage because we have violence in schools. It takes a lot of things. Well, I leave it to the speakers. We have Dr. Kim Harris. We have Dr. Joy Harris, her mother. We have Sylvia Gentile. Is that it? Oh, that's good. Gentile. And then we have Beth Bacon, who taught children with special needs. And is Joe Gerder here? Yes? Oh, yes, he's right there. So we have all these persons. Maybe they can come up and sit up here. And those on Zoom will join in the conversation. You, Dr. Kim, or?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great to see everybody. I'm here in Philadelphia with Mom. Mom, say hi.
Hi, everyone.
And when I think about teaching, one of the things that I learned from my mom and from my sister, who are both teachers, is that it's all about relationship. You know, Mom, you always told me, you said, you don't teach anybody to read. You establish relationship with them, and then they teach themselves to read. Didn't you remember saying that to me, Mom?
Absolutely, and that's still true today.
Yeah, what else do you want to say, Mom?
Well, I just think that teaching is something where you're learning as you teach and you're teaching as you learn, and that the children are the greatest teachers.
Because they teach you something, huh?
Oh, yes. Every day, things you never knew as a human being. The children will help you.
And then absolutely, for me, one of the things that I learned from my mom and my sister is that you really do have to establish that relationship, even if it takes a lot of extra work, because the first time that you ask to meet with a student individually or with a parent individually, you don't want that first time to be because you're saying they did something bad. So you just want to get to say hi to them, how are you? Now, that's kind of interesting this semester for me because this is one of those semesters where I have 3 classes. So I've got 85 students, something like that. But I'm doing individual meetings with each one of them just to say, hi, where are you from and why did you choose LMU? So it's a lot, but it's definitely worth it. And the students are interesting because they keep saying nobody has done that with them. Mm-hmm. Nobody has met with them one-on-one. You have one more thing you want to say?
Yes, I was thinking also teachers have to use their eyes. So when they look at a student, they say, hi, I think I like you. I know I like you. We're going to get along just fine. And say, yay. And the students will think you're crazy. You have to make them know you're crazy in a nice way.
So that you're a little bit, that you color outside of the lines?
That's right. For sure. Mm-hmm. That's good.
So I have a few questions now that maybe we can guide you as you go along. First one, what are some of the aspects of teaching that you miss most or would miss most after retiring from teaching?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So one of the things that, as a teacher that I miss most is looking for somebody else to teach. You're always wanting to teach, and you find out you need to teach adults. You can teach a little dog. You can teach yourself something, and every day you learn something. I don't know why it's like that. I think God is very special. But every day you can go to bed that night and say, well, doggone it, I learned, and fill in the blank. How you like that?
I like that. Now, one thing, and then we'll pass it on to the next person in the panel, but one thing that I know is that in our Church in Ocean Park community, we have some new teachers and some people who are really coming into the profession. So I'm glad that among the new teachers that we have coming into the profession, that they have mentors in our Church in Ocean Park community, so that as they come in at this very difficult time, they've got somebody that they can call and say, oh, this happened, or I need some guidance. So yes. I think that we can continue to mentor each other in the community.
I think that's good. And don't be afraid to touch very gently. Just touch the shoulder.
Just on the shoulder to say,
hey, I like you. Mm-hmm. Just with one finger. Don't give them a big old hug. Just touch them gently. You'll send all kinds of things through their body. They'll go, whoa, she touched me.
Touched just like on the shoulder.
That's
there you
right.
go.
George and Joseph. Okay, so I have a few questions now that maybe we can guide you as you go along. First one, what are some of the aspects of teaching that you miss most or would miss most after retiring from teaching?
I have the advantage of being retired, so I know what I would miss. And what I miss is the student interactions, and I also miss them teaching me things and being surprised by it. And they taught me a lot of things. It's the difference between perspective and perception. What I thought was going on and what was really going on. And sometimes there's a huge gap, and that's where you learn the most. And it'd be situations like, a student asked a question. He had a bunch of tattoos, long hair. I assumed he was a druggie sitting in the back corner. I go, I just answered that question 3 times. Yeah. Then I realized, no, I hadn't. It was a great question, like a brilliant question. But of course, me being me, it takes me, 30 seconds to admit to it after I realize it. And I go, okay, here's why it was a great question. And here's the answer. And I'm sorry. I talked to him during the break, and he said from the moment I criticized him until I apologized, he didn't hear a single thing I said, and he couldn't read anything on the board. And that made me realize as a teacher, so what I tell new teachers is you can damage students. And your job is to heal yourself and the students. And you realize that. I had another situation where a student was falling asleep. In class, I go, slacker. No, it turned out he was homeless and he was sleeping on campus, arriving at 2:30 in the morning because it was the safest place for him to be. And his fellow students would wake him up in the morning because they knew where he would park, and they made sure he got showered in the gym, and they brought him food. I go, I'm misreading things. And then the final one I'll tell you is I was coming back to teaching. I was an administrator 8 times. And I would come back to teaching because that's what I loved. And so I'm thinking, the top student in the class getting the highest marks is laughing at all my jokes. And I'm funny, I'm on fire. I'm thinking, this kid is super smart too. Then he asked me to fill out a form for a scholarship. And one of the forms is, do you have any handicaps? I'm thinking, no, okay, I'll ask him. And he goes, yeah, I do. I have Tourette's, and my tic is I laugh out loud. Very disappointing. But I look back on those, and those things translate into my own life. And the final thing I'll say about teaching that I learned is when you first start teaching, you say, man, and particularly in math, you want to have high standards. And you focus on high standards, but that's not teaching. It's saying, I have high standards, but I know because I know you can meet them. With the added thing that came too late in my career, and I'm going to support you. And that's the support that the ladies were just talking about. Support them in the way they need to be supported, not in the way that you were necessarily supported, because a lot of times we had privileges they didn't. And so it's back to Paul Tillich and the idea of original sin being what worked for you works for everyone else. No. You have to give that up pretty quickly in teaching because your students are different than you.
I'm Sylvia, and I just retired in June. So, and everybody else just went back last Wednesday, except me. So, it's sort of interesting. Thank you. Thank you. So that question about what do I miss is very fresh in my mind. And it is, like all the other speakers have said, it's first and foremost the kids, because it is such a source of energy and creativity. And I taught at the UCLA Lab School for 20 years, so that school is organized probably a little bit more like Play Mountain than a regular school. It's an elementary school, and we have 3 parts to our mission. We have teaching and learning, which is, of course, the biggest and most important. But then there was also research, and there was also something called public engagement. So it was actually a lot bigger of a job than typically in a regular elementary school. But the thing I do miss most is obviously the kids and their exploration and their questions, and also my colleagues, because one of the big foundations of UCLA Lab School is there's a lot of collaboration among the adults. That's really the way that we teach, is cooperatively, collaboratively. So I miss that, not having, those friends to be, I can talk to them, of course, but we're not puzzling out what a child needs and how we can motivate somebody or how we can provide some support that, as you were saying, Joe, it's not something that we necessarily needed growing up, but they clearly do. And so to figure out through a rapport, like Kim was saying, it's really important to start out by seeing first and foremost the child's strengths. What is this kid good at? What is this kid like? Has this kid accomplished? And it's not only academics. Many times it's sports or dance or cooking or something else that's outside of school, and be able to actually start the relationship from a place of positivity. So.
Okay, thank you all very much. Beth Bacon is here. Maybe let her say a couple of words as well.
Okay, I taught for 40 years, 20 years in the inner city in Los Angeles, and 20 years as a special ed resource specialist teacher in Westchester. And I met everything you could possibly meet in the classroom, everything from the dark days to the light days, but thank God the light days were numerous. And it was just a real joy of teaching. And when I went from special ed into a special ed school, in Los Angeles, you don't have a choice of schools. They place you when you become special ed. And so I got placed up in Westchester, and I spent 20 more years there as a special ed resource teacher. So I love teaching. I love everything about it. I see on the questions here it says, what would you do after retirement? Well, I hate to tell you this, but I retired because of the money. I was a teacher for 1 year. If you retired, if you had 30 years experience, LAUSD gave you a golden handshake of $40,000. So I said, I'll take it. And then you couldn't sign back up to teach, but you could sign back up to be a substitute teacher. So I said, I'm not going to teach again. Well, after a year of sitting around and watching, yes, I did like watching TV every day. I didn't miss Oprah. I could see her every day. But I went back to substitute teaching in Westchester. And even though they said, well, you can't pick your area, if you're going to be a substitute teacher, we can send you everywhere. So I don't know if you know, but LAUSD expands from the Valley all the way down to San Pedro. And then there's East LA. So what I did, I called all the principals at the 5 schools I knew in Westchester and told them, I will be a substitute for you. And I did that for 5 more years. And then I just want to say, they said, what can they do to regain more teachers? I was lucky because the Westchester Marina Del Rey Chamber of Commerce has this big honor for teachers every spring. I don't know if they still have it, but it's a big honor at the Hilton Hotel at the LA airport. And so, like I said, we feel great to be honored, but let's not forget the children, to honor them. The one in your class that's the lowest performing, they just need a little bit of a push, and they need to hear kind words. And I know this one teacher who I taught with, and she was an experienced teacher. I said, what do I do if Johnny's acting up? And she said, you say, Johnny, can you help me? Can you help me? And just use that word help. And the kids just eat it up. It's like, yeah, I want to help you. What do you want me to do? I just want you to shh for a little bit. And so I'll never forget that teacher told, just use the word help. And I can't say anything else. It's just that, I've now been out of the classroom for a long time, and all the pressures that are there now with all of the stuff that's going on at schools. I don't know what's going to be next, but I just wanted to say that if you know anyone that has students or your grandchildren are in school or something, just tell them that that they're available to help you. I don't care if you're going to make them the pencil sharpener after school people or the ones that collect the broken erasers. Just that everybody needs a little help. And that's all I can say.
Okay, we're going to come back to those on Zoom. We're going to come back to those on Zoom now. What effects has COVID and gun violence had on students you are teaching? COVID and gun violence, what effects you think it has had on students you are teaching? And how would you help them? Yes.
Now, for COVID, I would say at LMU, the students, they're much more fragile in a lot of ways. I know that the psychological services, it's like overflowing with students that just need a good deal more support than I would say they did before time. I'm also finding that a lot of the students, they're very nervous. There's some of them that are just really excited to be back. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. But yes, so they're excited to be back in the classroom, but there is a nervousness. They write to me, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? Mm-hmm. A student literally wrote to me and said, I'm in the hospital, but I don't want my assignment to be late. So I said, no. I said, I think, you need to be focusing on, focus on healing. And we can deal with the assignment. You can answer these 3 questions at the back of the book some other time. But just, and they had the doctor's note and all, but they were still in the hospital, but so nervous.
I think that one of the things about teaching is to try your very best to get in touch with the parent. The parents could be just helpers in terms of, helping you to know that this student exists, or helping you to know that they are working and they can't help the student, or helping you to know that the grandparent, by the way, the grandparents' day was Sunday, and helping you to know that the grandparents could help and that they're working or that they don't have money. So you need to touch or get in touch with parents ahead of time if possible.
Mm-hmm. And I don't even know, I don't even have words to think about teachers now, and what is it like to think about the fact that someone might come into your room with a gun. It is frightening, absolutely frightening, and that could happen as easily, unfortunately, in a college classroom as it could happen anywhere else. So it's frightening, and we do, we practice, what do we do if they say, there's a lockdown on campus, but I just wonder about the kind of courage it takes to be like the teachers there in Georgia just last week.
And the teachers, parents lending their children
or
to
gifting their children.
Yes, and they say, what's going to happen to my baby? And get on the phone and let me know. Duck down. I mean, they are trying to help the children. Now that gets in the way of teaching and learning too.
Mm-hmm. So thanks. So we'll pass it on to the next one. Thank you.
Love listening. I would love listening to both of you for hours. So my response to that is I was not teaching at the time of COVID, nor during the shooting at a nearby high school where we had teachers and students, and there was a death. It was August High School shooting in fall of 2019. And so for the shooting, it created just a panic in students and anxiety. And we heard that through our dual enrollment teachers, that the students were like just distracted at looking at the front door. They wanted to, and they knew the kid, and the kid was a really nice kid, but his gasket blew. And so there was an anxiety over the shooting. Around COVID, I wasn't teaching, but it would have just completely interrupted how I taught. What we've been talking about is how important relationships are. And online relationships, I don't have online relationships, I want to make that clear. But they're different from what I hear. And so it's really hard to interact with students in the same way because there's a lot of random conversation. And I had my students look out for other students. So they were responsible for telling me if someone was suicidal. And then I would go talk to the student, then I'd walk them up to the health clinic, and that would happen about once a year. But I couldn't do that on Zoom if I was teaching. But here's where I changed the conversation a little, in that I thought it was terribly unfair to the teachers because we had to move immediately. As soon as our local high school district shut down, I knew I had to shut down the college. And it was a Friday, March 13th. It was the day before my daughter was getting married. And I had to go up to the college and start shutting it down, and we had to be off campus by the following Thursday. And when you have 900 faculty, some of them are not particularly good at technology. They're still trying to figure out what the internet is, and you're trying to tell them to teach online. And we had that. And how do you teach labs online? So we didn't give them the tools. I was trying to get 3 weeks out of it, and I had basically 3 days. And so I thought it was unfair to the teachers, the ones who were unprepared, and the ones who did labs and alternative sorts of things. How do you teach, basketball online when you show up and you do physical activity? How do you teach weightlifting online? That sort of thing. So I just thought it was unfair to the teachers. Sometimes life is really unfair because that made it hard for them to translate their own class and to help their students. And they felt like they were failing. And that just made it really difficult. And so I felt very bad for those teachers, particularly the ones who were struggling. And our IT department did an amazing job. They ran workshops, and I was super impressed. But it's still, in the end, when you're having to change, then it translates to the students, and I felt, bad about that.
Well, I was teaching during COVID, and I was teaching elementary school children during COVID. And the most terrible part was kids who were starting. Our school goes 4-year-olds to 12-year-olds. The most terrible part was a couple of colleagues who were teaching the preschool group. So this was their first experience being in school, and they were on a screen with two lovely people, two lovely teachers doing the absolute best they could, but it was horrible. And I guess what's happened from that, well, I should backtrack for a second. So our school uses an inquiry approach, so everything is very hands-on. There's lots of exploratory work, there is reading for older kids and note-taking and all that, but the primary thing is to be able to get your hands in something. And a big question was, well, how do we get stuff to kids to get their hands into? And that posed a whole logistical craziness. But it was really the social emotional part that was the most difficult, because all those early years are really about learning to collaborate with each other, learning to disagree agreeably, learning to listen to other kids' ideas, learning to be able to be part of a group, find your groove, find your path. And that was just impossible over Zoom. And so what happened when everybody came back to school, we've just had to reteach everything from the very beginning. In fact, my first assignment after COVID was in 3rd grade, and we discovered that half our kids did not know how to use scissors, which was just shocking. Yeah, 3rd grade, so 8 years old, and they didn't know how to use scissors because they had had a little bit of time, not on COVID in classrooms, but they had not had years of practice. And then when we came back and we started doing group work, kids doing group projects, they didn't know what to do. They were like, no, that's my idea, that's my tool, and if you don't want to do what I want to do, you go away. I mean, that's like, wow, antithetical to any kind of learning community that we were trying to create. So it was really, I think the social emotional part was the most obvious casualty of COVID. For teachers too, as you were saying, Joe, I mean, we couldn't collaborate anymore. Right. We were like having these phone conversations, and if you were in a new team, I was fortunate enough to be with people I knew very well. So for us, we translated our close in-person relationship into an online relationship. But for many teachers, we team teach at our school. If you were teaching with a person that you didn't know at all, that was like really, really, really hard to get into that. The other thing I wanted to talk to a little bit was the lockdown, the gun violence, and because we're on UCLA's campus, I forget what year it was. I think it was 2010, or was that, maybe you were there at that point. There was an engineering student who drove from Minneapolis to LA to settle a dispute over a grade with a shotgun. And this happened at the south end of campus. We were at the north end of campus. But communication was absolutely terrible. We had no idea what was going on. And nobody in our community, kids or adults, had ever had this experience before. So, and there was a lot of mismatches between what UCLA was saying and what we were understanding from UCPD. Anyway, it was a mess, an absolute mess. And for a lot of kids, it was very, very traumatic, and teachers too, re-stimulating old trauma or just creating a new trauma, unfortunately. And since that time, it's been a big debate about whether or not we should do lockdown drills. But you're dealing with 4-year-olds, so what on earth? Anyway, the jury's still out on that, but it's like this, a little like what you were saying, is that nobody can hear anything unless they're developmentally ready to hear it or feeling socially, emotionally calm enough to do that.
And I just wanted to add one thing really quickly. What became really apparent that was sort of kind of invisible was the social economic disparities. And we also had 2 fires in the fall of 2019 in which I had to close the campus down for. And so we just saw this enormous disparity that came to light. And then, we had food insecurity. We had housing issues that we didn't really pay attention to. And so it all came to the forefront. And so it changed our relationship with our students, but also now has more awareness around that.
Okay, so we are going to come to an end. We can talk a lot about schools and teaching again, but maybe one last question and with brief answers, if possible.
Did you want to say something?
No short answers for teachers. Okay. All right. The Los Angeles Unified School District plan to ban cell phones from classes. You can make your suggestion about that, or if you don't want to maybe talk about that particular cell phone issue, what about police on campus? So you can choose. I'm going to go back to
For a short answer. I suggest that people listen to, look up, there was a report on KCRW. I don't think it was a national report, though it may have been, about a school, I think it's a middle school in the Los Angeles area that's an arts school that did ban phones. And they did it already last year, and how different it was, because you had students now going around the campus talking about their artwork, talking about music and their paintings and everything, as opposed to walking around looking down at their phones. And I see that at LMU all the time. Students mostly walking on campus, head down, and just looking at their phone as they're walking. And you can't even say hello to someone as you walk across campus because they're not looking up so you can catch their eye.
That's a good one.
So.
And the thing that I would like to offer, years ago, 60 years ago, the only way you could teach was you had to visit a student's home during the summertime so you knew who you were working with. Now this happened 60 years ago. I'm 93, so I had to visit these homes. Wow. And I think there's nothing wrong with doing that. It sounds like we need to do some visiting now.
Mm-hmm. Even if we have to do it on Zoom, at least we'd get to meet those parents. Okay, right. Thanks.
So I don't know what the right answer is, but I want to look at the data because that's the type of person I am. So I'm open, but the data's coming in suggesting it's good. It's not only students walking around looking at their cell phones, but it's administrators and teachers. And so somehow some limit on them as well, just as modeling behavior. And so, I'm open to it. So I just think that's all I have to say on that. I'm not going to, but I didn't teach high school.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in an elementary school that goes through 6th grade. So it would be those 12-year-olds that would, for the most part, have issues with cell phones. But I think, I don't know, I'm with you, Joe. Let's look at the data. But I think intuitively, to get kids to be off social media, all the negative stuff that social media brings to the table is worth it. At least worth it to try it and then see how it goes.
There's a few teachers who've actually used internet effectively in the classroom, Kahoots and those sorts of things, doing survey questions, everyone has to respond. But I think in general, just like with alcohol, we'd be better off without them in the classroom.
Okay, right. So I'll end with Beth. I'll give Beth the last word here.
I have a few thoughts here in closing. If you know anybody that's going to be a teacher or is still actively teaching, tell them to remember to, before they leave the house in the morning, check the shoes they have on. Because when I went to school and I had my round reading group and Randy wasn't paying attention, and I said, Randy, you don't know where we are. Show him where we are. It's your turn to read. He said, okay, I'll read, Mr. Bacon, but I just want you to know your shoes are 2 different colors. I thought I was so smart buying flats. I had a red pair and a brown pair and a navy pair and a black pair. So I had on 1 navy shoe and 1 black shoe. And then the other one was when you fight, well, you don't do this now because you show those films and things in the classroom, but we used to all meet in the auditorium. And the deal was there were 4 first grades and 4 second grades. And we had filming at the same time. And they said, one of my teachers said, don't seat your kids in the middle. Get there early and seat your kids in the rows by the wall so you can lean up by the wall. You'll be the last row in and rest while films are going on. And so then the auditorium lights went down, and then they'd go on when the person had to change the films. And so the littlest, scrawniest girl in my classroom, who was sitting in the first row, got up and turned around and faced the whole auditorium and said, "Oh, Miss Bacon, I see you. You look just like my grandma when she be sleeping in her chair." And of course, I had to say something because I just had a class, 8 classrooms. I said, "Oh, sweetie, it's Friday and I am tired and my eyes were closed." But no, I was not asleep. I just couldn't wait to have all those children go home and say something like, "Guess what? One of our teachers sleeps in the classroom." So anyways, what can I say? Don't lean your head up against the wall if there's anything going on in the auditorium. Seat your children in the middle so you have to stay away. And all I can say is good luck. Stick with it. Stick with it. If you're a young teacher just starting out, stick with it.
Okay, thank you all very much indeed. So after hearing all of that, I wish I had gone into teaching. Well, but maybe I'm still teaching. I teach patients how to deal with their illnesses and so on. So we all teach. Thank you very much.
Well, this song is written by Bill Gord. I wonder where Bob went. I saw him earlier. Oh, okay. Well, Bob, I'm singing your brother's song. And I think you can join this. You'll see. I'll get you going. When there is darkness all around, we can be the light. And when the road cannot be found, we can be the light. Okay, everybody sing this. We can be the light. We can be the light. When the world is dark as night, we can be the light. Let's try that again. We can be the light. We can be the light. When the world is dark as night, we can be the light. And I would say, teachers can be the light. Teachers can be the light. When the world is, we can be the light. What's that? Absolutely, my God, there are teachers, right? When I am lost and feeling low, we can be the light. When I can't see where to go, we can be the light. We can be the light. We can be the light. When the world is dark as night, we can be the light. When you feel like no one cares, we can be the light. Don't you know that we'll be there? We can be the light. Everybody, we can be the light. We can be the light. When the world is dark as night, we can be the light. Let's do it again. We can be the light. We can be the light. When the world is dark as night, we can be the light. When the world is dark as night, we can be the light. Thank you.
Okay, we go to community sharing. All right, community sharing. We're going to go to...
There's so much I could respond to. So, because as a teacher for many, many, many years, and I've been a preschool teacher, kindergarten age teacher, as well as college age. So Sometimes you can't tell the difference, but no. But I want to speak to Joe. Joe was my professor for one semester teaching statistics. I don't know if you remember that, Joe. And I have to tell you, I was terrified. This is graduate school. Of this class. I mean, I don't do well with numbers at all. I have dyscalculia, and I really had zero real interest in statistics or how to do them. But he made it so much fun, I have to tell you. One, he talked about making it personalized. He had people bring pictures of their children. I brought my godchildren. Talk about them. But what he did is, I was writing my master's thesis and had us bring in some statistics that we were working with. And it really addressed a real frustration I was having with this research, because I didn't see these were small subgroups, subjects, and I just couldn't see how they could extrapolate out all the implications with this 15 people that they were, they were self-reporting. And he really helped me understand why I was so frustrated. I don't know if I understood statistics. I know I don't know statistics, but I can appreciate the value because it really helped me understand a way to understand the research in a meaningful way for me, because it wasn't meaningful just reading it at all. So I have to give him a great deal of credit for getting me through that class.
Well, thank you.
Yes, you should. Anyway, you gotta listen, and they're gonna say crazy things. I think I've shared with some of you. Last year, I was teaching a class at a high school. One of the first questions they asked me is, do you believe in the moon landing? I went, oh my God.
I remember having really good, teachers growing up. One that's living next door to us was my second grade teacher who taught at Grant Elementary School. She's now retired. Her husband was an English teacher at Samo. He retired. But I have really good teachers in high school that I really, really liked. And one of them I didn't like. I don't want to go into much detail. I did track and field for 6 years. I was in high school for 6 years, and I did shot put my sophomore year. And there was a coach there named Greg Bernard who was a coach there for years, and he really took interest in me and wanted me to be part of the trap team and things.
I want to preference what it is I say with the idea that was communicated earlier about the nobility of teaching as a profession. As a child, I grew up in a time and went to school in an area which was just less than a half mile from the flashpoint of the Watts Uprising. And within a month, school would open. In fact, within a couple of weeks, school would be open. And I think Mama Ijoy said it best when she said, over 60 years ago, in order for you to teach, you had to come into home of a student. I say that to say essentially, during this era, many of the students or the classmates that I had were abused by police. If not them, their brothers and their sisters. But we never really got a chance to talk about that in school. And so I know it would have been unheard of for a child to bring a gun into a school while I was in elementary school. But by the time I was in high school, that was part of a gang initiation. You know, in order for you to be initiated into a gang, you had to come in and shoot up the place. Whether or not you hit anybody was irrelevant, but the idea that you had to be bold enough to come in with a gun automatically gained you gang status. I say all that to say essentially, as I look now at what teachers have to go through, and I can only imagine that much of that is still present, because I'm wondering, and I can even pose it as a question to those teachers, when it comes time to addressing the Israeli-Palestinian question, how do you gear up for that, understanding that you're dealing with children that can see the trauma but can't really understand it? And so how do we more or less get to a point where they can communicate that hurt that is within that? Because students not only see it, they're reacting to it. Students are walking out of classes in support of the whole Palestinian question. So I'm curious as to how one can lead a discussion to address this ongoing thing within the world itself.
Any response to that, Dr. Kim? Or
Yes, I think because for my honors students at the end of last semester, part of what we did, and I did have, I had some Jewish students in the class, I had some Muslim students in the class, and there were about 15 students, and we went around, and whoever wanted to speak about how they were feeling and what their experience was on campus, and maybe some of the things that were going on in their dorms and whatnot. So that was a beginning, and I think now this semester I'm going to start those questions a lot earlier, because I'm teaching about religious traditions, and so things are going to be coming up, to find out how they're feeling as they watch things going on in the world, and especially ones that are somewhat based with religious heritage and traditions, and then see where a conversation might go on from there. But we had to start, especially, on a college campus, where either some students were scared or they were hiding, they wouldn't wear their Jewish stars, or they didn't let people know they were Muslim, or so just have to really start with how they are feeling and what they're experiencing.
I would just add that I've worked with younger children as well, but where they've come up with questions about what's happening in the world and about what's happening in their lives. The most important thing is to really listen. Listen to how they are understanding what is going on around them. Because kids would ask me questions about God or what happens when you die, and I wouldn't answer it, because that's not my place. I'd say people have lots of different ideas about it. Maybe do you guys have any ideas about it? And of course they had tremendous amount of ideas about it. How many times you die, how many times you come back to life, where do you go? I had a 45-minute conversation with a group of 5-year-olds over what happens after you die, and I didn't say a word. And it was one of the best conversations I've had in my life, really. It was just really quite profound to me. But for these, I hate to use the word touchy, because that's not a challenging, let me put challenging issues. I think it's most important to really listen and find out what they are making of it. And then you go from there, because they're all going to have different experiences. And then you try to normalize that. So that's how I approach those issues.
Yep. Good advice. Good advice.
I wanted to respond to the issue of COVID within the classroom because during my graduate program, part of the program was at the tail end of COVID lockdown stuff, and I remember having classes online and then transitioning to a hybrid and then transitioning into like fully in person. And it's very illuminating to me to hear about the struggle of COVID, because I can tell you that my experience was that when we had the online classes, I couldn't be happier. I mean, it's not to say I don't like the in-person stuff, but I thrived on the ability to just be totally focused on one square on my screen and not have the distraction of, you know, classmates being on their phones all the time. And I say that as a millennial. I mean, come on, you know me. But so it's very interesting to hear that people had such a hard time. And I know some of my classmates shared with me that it was a nightmare for them. I said, yeah, but you had everything at your disposal. No, I didn't. I needed the support. I needed this. I needed that. Oh, okay. So it was really interesting. So yeah, thank you.
I never taught. I've been in 4 different schools as a substitute where we had lockdowns because of guns in the vicinity of the school. And I already know it's kind of scary. One was right outside, across the street from my classroom on the other side of the fence. I was letting my kids out, and all of a sudden someone says, "That guy's waving a gun." I look, and there's a guy standing on the sidewalk with a gun. We had 4 classrooms coming out at once. We had to get them all in and call the office to lock down the school. We've had, after 9/11, there were packages left on a bus, and the bus stops across the street from our school because we have to have a lockdown to make sure there isn't a bomb on the bus. I worked at a school off of Vermont where twice guns were thrown from the alleyway over the wall into the schoolyard while they were being chased by cops. And it was a Catholic school, in the church next door, there was always these guys walking in and out in suits or stuff. I asked the nun who was the principal, and she says, "Oh, that's the FBI. They're doing surveillance on the bank across the street because it was robbed so much." I worked when shutdown happened for LAUSD, and I got a text from Susan Lockmiller saying this LAUSD announced they're going to close. And the teacher came back from the meeting, and I said, "We're closing down, right?" And she said, "They didn't tell us anything." 40 minutes later, they finally announced over the loudspeaker that the district's closing, and they had all of us making packets for 3 hours for kids to take home, figuring it was only going to be a couple of weeks. Then the school district wanted everyone to learn how to teach online, and they paid me $500 to take 5 courses. I took 7 just to be sure, and I had so many notes, I said, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this, so I retired. But after schools came back, I've talked to other teachers, and at COVID, not only did student behavior fall apart, and it was really hard for a lot of teachers in the younger grades, but parenting skills totally fell apart for a lot of families. It was just way too overwhelming for them. And so kids were just unruly and not focused when they came back for a good year or two. And one person who was really affected in my life was Matilda Lockmiller. She was graduating from college, and her graduation was canceled. They had to videotape her in a yard holding a sign and wearing her gown and cap. But not only that, she was supposed to give a concert, and a group of us were going to go up and see her in concert, and that was canceled also. They had to film her in an isolated room, and it was heartbreaking for her. So that's the aftermath of COVID.
Okay, I think we got to close now. I'm just going to let Jean say a word. And is there anyone else on Zoom who would like to say something brief after Jean?
Well, I'll make this really brief. I just wanted to say that in teaching and also in parenting, being a neighbor, being an aunt or uncle, being a grandma or a grandpa with children, I think one of the most important skills to teach them is how to use resources. In a lot of classrooms, kids have to memorize everything, and I was amazed at the math classes where everything had to be memorized. I had posters all over my walls, and during tests, kids could use any of the information on the wall. And at first, everybody sat in their seats, and they were so afraid to get up and look at the wall that they would rather fail their test than get up and look at the wall. But little by little, throughout the semester, they figured out, oh my gosh, it's all right there. And then by looking at the walls and getting information off the walls, they learned how to look through their book to look for information in the index, in the table of contents. And so when you're helping kids, that's really important, is to help them, because isn't that what we do all the time? Figure out how our health insurance works, figure out how our banking works. We have to research.
So thank you all so much. Let us give 3 shouts for the teachers. You know this, hip, hip, hip? Hooray! Hip, hip, hip? Hooray! Hip, hip, hip? Hooray! Thank you, teachers.
The bucket and the basket. Do this for the teachers, right? Everybody here is one, or was one, or like me, is the child of 2 teachers, 2 public school teachers. So anyway, I didn't follow in their footsteps, but I certainly appreciated what they did and listened to it every night at dinner when they came home. So anyway, the bucket is for coins and the baskets are for money. And if you want to do this online or any other way, come and see me and I can tell you how to do that. Thank you.
From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share. Now we want to hear from Linda and or Jean. I'm not sure how to do that. So Jeannie?
Yes. So we're going to have a remembrance for Linda's husband, Getachew. I cannot believe that it's been almost a year. I cannot believe it. So she's going to say a few words about her husband, and then we're going to sing These Do I Remember.
Thank you, Jeannie. Yeah, today's the anniversary of Getachew's death, and the first anniversary. And I didn't say anything about the whole teacher thing because I figure I have a few things I want to say about Getch. And the first thing I want to say is that I've learned a lot in this year, and one of the things that is real clear to me is both the universal and the particular, the universality and the particularity of mourning. I mean, many of us are lucky enough to have the first person that we mourn be our Lolo, our abuelito, our papa, our grandma, our granny. And that's, that I think many of us are lucky enough to have that be the first person that we lost. And we learned from that that's something that we all end up sharing. And I just think that's important for me to keep in mind. And then to also know the particularity of that each person is a unique and wonderful universe, and we love them for their particularities. And so it helps me to remember some of the particular things about Getch. I mean, he was a soccer player. He was a badass. He was a jolly jack that strutted the streets of Addis Ababa looking fine. He was clothes proud. He was a bodybuilder. And then there was an uprising in Ethiopia in the 70s, and the world changed. And he ended up in the United States as a refugee and a stateless person. He had a green card but no passport. He had a refugee travel document. And I don't think he ever really adjusted to life in the United States of America. I think some people, people have different trauma. I think refugee trauma is a real deal. And anyway, I don't think he really, I don't think he ever really, in a lot of ways, he never found his groove. I mean, he definitely never found an employment groove where he could earn a living that fulfilled what he wanted to do. But he was a communist, and he was part of a community. He had comrades who supported him who, the day he died, surrounded him and spoke to him of the contributions that he had made. And he knew, in fact, that his life had been important, not both to me and the people he loved, and to a broader circle of people. It's really bizarre to me, in a certain sense. It's disorienting to me to know that he did not live to see the current stage of the U.S.-financed, Zionist-led stage of the Palestinian genocide. I mean, he knew the history, but he did not see this latest episode. Fred and I illegally dumped his ashes into the Pacific Ocean off the pier at Ports of Call, while the cops were distracted by skaters behind us on October 11th. And so my grieving for Getch has been inextricably linked to the global grief that we all feel. That we all feel for Rifat al-Arir, a Palestinian poet who was murdered in October and whose daughter and newborn child were murdered in April. For the grief we feel for Hirsch Goldberg, who was murdered in a tunnel in Gaza. For the grief we feel for Hind Rajab, who was murdered in an ambulance in Gaza City. For the grief we feel for Aishanur Iji, who was murdered under an olive tree this week. There are about 40,000 more names. I don't know if I actually have time for this, but yeah, probably not. And I didn't bring the list anyway. So, but, you know, I mean, there are 40,000 more names. And I just want to say one more thing, because I'm not going to lead the list of names, that to be hopeless would dishonor his memory. To be hopeless dishonors the memory of those who have gone before us, who have fought for a better world. So hope is action. Hope in action is a fight for a better world. And I just say that, that we have to honor the memories of those who've gone before us by fighting for a better world. And I have to honor Getacheo's memory and my own inner truth to say that for me, that is a communist world where we can live together without nations, without borders, without money, without buying and selling our labor power, that we can live together internationally as international working class will be the human race.
So we'll just sing together, These Do I Remember, to remember Getacheo or anyone else that you would like to remember. People in your lives who have passed, pets who have passed. So I have one of those in the last few months. So here's how it goes. I'll sing it through one time. You can join me if you want to, or you can join in the second time. These do I remember well. These do I remember well. These do I remember well. These do I remember well through all the years. Thank you.
Lead with love, one foot in front of the other, and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other, and lead with love. One foot in front of the other, lead with love. Don't give up hope.
Don't give up hope.
You're not alone.
You're not alone.
Don't you give up.
Don't you give up.
Keep moving on.
Keep moving on.
You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. One foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. One foot, isn't this what teachers do? And lead with Gail.
Lift up your eyes.
Lift up your eyes.
Don't you despair.
Don't you despair.
Look up ahead.
Look up ahead.
The path is there.
The path is there. You gotta put one foot in front of the other. One foot. Lead with love. One foot in front of the gotta put
one foot from the other,
and
we will love.
one foot in front of the other. All right, Marty.
We will love.
I know you're scared.
I know you're scared.
I'm scared too.
I'm scared too.
But here I am.
But here I am.
Right next to you.
Right next to you.
You gotta put
One foot in front of the other.
One foot, oh yeah.
We will love. One foot in front of the other. And we will love.
You gotta put
One foot in front of the other.
one foot, and we will love. One foot in front of the other, and we will love.
Okay, so we give thanks for today as we lifted up all our teachers. We lift them up, we continue to support them, and we continue to uplift them so that they may have the continued resilience and confidence and assurance and hope as they go forward to bring their students learning and to bring them a good way of life. So we're going to lift up our hands as we prepare for our, what we call it, benediction. We prepare for our benediction after 3. 1, 2, 3. Carry